Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Almasri. Cameron Griffith is a former elevator mechanic who turned into a full-time real estate investor. He's the co-founder of Midlothian Suites, which is an international short-term rental company. And on this episode, we talked about how he bought his first property in Hamilton, some of the failures that he faced, how he was basically Airbnb-ing some of his properties through the pandemic in order to increase cash flow and to be able to leave his job and supplement his income by doing so. We talked about some of the current projects that he's working on, how he's doing Airbnb arbitrage on townhomes, a couple of newer townhomes in Waterdown. The whole Airbnb arbitrage system, or I guess just Airbnb rental arbitrage, how that works. For those that don't know, some people will actually rent a unit from a landlord and then put it out for short-term rentals and make the spread, put that in their pocket basically. So if you guys are interested in this type of thing, I think you're going to find a lot of value because we do discuss some of the details of how to run that business. I hope you guys do appreciate the information that you're hearing. If you do, make sure to leave us a review. And if you are interested in some duplexes in Southern Ontario, I have a package of 4 off-market properties, all legal duplexes that were recently renovated, and the owner is looking to offload them. He's willing to sell them individually or as a package. So if you'd like some more information on that, hit me up on Instagram, WellOffX, or go to www.welloff.ca and book a call there. And I'm more than happy to share some info. Enjoy the episode. All right, I'm here with Cam Griffith. Thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure.
You just heard, you said you listened to one of my episodes on the way here, so you know that I ask about childhood, although the episode you heard, which was with Dylan Suter, he was on as a repeat guest, so I didn't ask him. But anyway, let's just dive into your childhood. Where did you grow up? A couple things you remember.
Yeah, I grew up in Oakville, Ontario. Grew up in a rather large family, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. Grew up playing sports, moved to Burlington. Later on in my life, my parents divorced, and find myself still there, hanging around downtown and investing in real estate in and around the area.
Okay, cool. What sports were you involved in?
Football in my family, but I guess over here you'd call it soccer in Canada, where things are backwards.
What do you like? Which part of Europe is your family from?
Scotland. So
Okay.
I'm a Heart of Midlothian fan. I might as well get them out there, give them a shout out.
Okay. All right. So you did you play that like at a high level?
Somewhat, like Ontario Soccer League after, I guess, high school,
Mm-hmm.
but never did any post-secondary education, so never did it within those leagues. But yeah, I guess you could say that, yeah.
All right. Did you ever golf? Are you a golfer?
No, I'm not rich enough for that, George. I'm building that up. You know, the cash flow is coming in on the Airbnb side, so I'll build up to the golf. But with 2 young children, it's a little bit difficult to find the time with the business. Mm-hmm. And I don't even play football anymore, which I will get back to with the kids starting to pick up.
You're still in good shape, though, so you must be doing something.
Yeah, I do believe fitness is top of the priority list, especially ever since I've kind of gotten in the real estate investing space. It's helped me, I guess, adapt my mindset and grow. I find fitness is like number one. I'm not in the right mind space without doing my daily routine, whatnot. So yeah.
I agree with that 100%. I find that when I'm stressed out sometimes, I just got to go to the gym or play a round of golf or something. Like I feel some days I'm just like, I'm craving a really intense workout. And then I realize it's because I'm kind of stressed out, right?
Yeah. Everyone needs their outlet. And I think everyone has a different outlet, and it's just key. You know what you need and you know what to turn to, because it's a wild ride in real estate, as we know. You know, there's wins, there's losses, and probably more losses than wins. People just talk about the wins more often, right? So
somebody was actually mentioning that. I met somebody at a real estate event recently, and she said, like, everyone always talks about all their successes, but I want to hear about people's failures, because I guess she was going through some challenges at that point. So it's funny you mentioned that, because I guess that is true. Yeah.
I think that's where you see the real side of real estate, when people do talk about their failures and, you know, deals that did go sideways or whatnot. But those are the ones that make you, I believe. Like you'd mentioned, I was listening to Dylan Suter on the way in. I didn't know his backstory, but seen around Burlington, seen his beautiful home there. And I just kind of see like it's falling forward. You're gonna lose. You're gonna pick up. Mm-hmm. You got to pick up. You're gonna scrape your knees. Just make sure you get back up. Be very good at getting back up. That's the main thing. And if you always kind of have that outlet to turn to, I think it's always going to help you.
Yeah.
And if golfing's your outlet, like perfect, right?
Golfing's a good outlet, but then the thing is about golf, it's like a round can take 4 or 5 hours. So you're spending the whole day basically on the course. And if you're still, busy and working, it's not good to do it too much at this point, I'm finding.
So I don't know how to handle golf because it's so mental. And I think I'm not actually mentally there yet to handle golf because it is such a, like, it's not just the application through the swing. It's so in your mind, right? And yeah, I've got a busy brain, so I think you need to mature into golf. And I want to have the time to completely dedicate to it, not kind of half it. Because you get on that course, I'm a competitive guy, man. I know what guys are like on the course. I've been there, before. It's not fun losing. And so I want to be there and be there to win.
I felt the exact same way before I got started, which was in 2020. And I just said, like, if I'm going to golf, I want to be all in.
Yeah.
I really want to commit to it. And I did. I committed quite a bit. I didn't get a membership or anything, but yeah, it's such a long process to improve and get better. But it is really fun. And like you said, it is very mental. But anyway, why don't we talk a little bit about your career? So you weren't always a real estate investor. What were you doing before?
I got out of high school. I guess I kind of invested in real estate accidentally. I house hacked in Hamilton before Hamilton blew up. I guess 2009 I bought my house right in the middle of the recession, 110 grand, old wartime home. My brother rented a room off me, which was my dad's idea, who's the most just not he thinks small, right? He plays safe, right? But wow, what he got me going, and he got the wheels turning and made me see the power of real estate. Renovated a basement, kind of got going there. Bought my personal home I grew up in Burlington, which was a great decision privately off my mom. I think if you can acquire assets off market almost anywhere for, a good price under market value, you're always going to do well. So, with obviously equity appreciation and whatnot, I always believe in that. Not buying turnkey personally, but just kept moving. I got in the elevator business when I was 20. That allowed me to buy the home. My whole family's in it. It's kind of a family. I'm not a family-run business, but a family trade. My grandfather did it.
What's the elevator business?
So elevator mechanic. I physically worked on elevators. I did construction from the biggest job sites in North America at Four Seasons Hotel, which I think had 56 units out at the time. I worked beside the biggest foreman in Canada there. Then I kind of made my way back to Hamilton, got on maintenance, and then I helped construct the Oakville Hospital, and I became the on-site mechanic there with 35 or 36 elevators I took care of there. Then the pandemic happened, and when I was in the Oakville Hospital, I had a lot of free time, so I'm very driven, so I utilized that time to kind of delve into more podcasts, educate myself, and I kind of already invested in real estate, but the wrong way. I think Dylan mentioned this in his podcast. Had no idea of tax advantages, owning in personal name, buying in Burlington, always putting at buying with equity appreciation with renovation. But to say you're not gambling on the whole, this is going up 50 grand, or, you're not looking at 2% a year. You're looking at much more, and you're gambling on that. So to say I never got caught up in that would be, a lie. But we always did very well. But as the market turns and whatnot, you see why you can't, play the game that way if you want to be in it for a long time. So, I just kind of started burring properties with my friend. We got a rental, put my wife's grandmother in it. We burred it, pulled some money out, won again, got in a small multifamily space.
And this is while you're working as an elevator mechanic.
I was an elevator mechanic. So I got the wheels turning, and I'm kind of managing things at work because I had a lot of time. And then the pandemic broke out, and I realized, I created this. When you get around the real estate network and you see people create their own vision, create their own world, I knew I wanted that, and I knew it was meant for me. And then the pandemic happened. I saw this is I was going to probably lose my route at the hospital due to, my personal opinion. So I was like, this is probably the time to jump. I'm so lucky. I got a supportive wife, pregnant wife, daughter.
Oh, yeah.
We had a huge renovation going in South Burlington, middle of that, multiple things going on. And she was like, do it. I believe in you. Mm-hmm. That was huge. We jumped out. We finished off a couple of rentals with my partner. And then my business partner, who I was doing the buy and holds with and whatnot. And I evicted 3 tenants on Branch Street in Burlington. And it was social worker tenants and whatnot, dealing with their social workers. It wasn't fun. And I got told, get ready. I was property manager. renovations a month away, fill this place up. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, pandemic, people aren't paying rents. I'm in this full time. We have the time now, like I have the time to kind of start this Airbnb thing. Let's go for some cash flow and, mitigate losses if we can, as a property manager, and, put some cash flow in our pockets. So I saw the vision there, and it's just rolled since then, I guess, George. A quick blip of it. We just kind of kept acquiring units, arbitraging first our own units, which made sense, like units we owned personally, or in corps, and then snowballing it. Since I guess over a year ago, I met my business partner through the real estate network, Jay and Miho Ravel, business partners. They're in Japan. We've never actually met in person. But we do daily powwows, and we met through network. We have similar values, and we decided to say, you know what, like, let's kind of reconstruct things, build from the ground up, and like do this the right way, instead of kind of the way I did like real estate the first time, where you just, buying personal names or something. Like, let's look at the big macro view here and do this right. So we're currently looking to move down to the U.S., turn our operations down there, still organically grow in Canada, but just run everything through American accounts. I believe the true growth for us is there. So that's where we're at to date. Just kind of taking it day by day, and we're just trying to get the big push over the border.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back a little bit. You mentioned Airbnb arbitrage, or just arbitrage, I guess. For anyone listening who doesn't know what that means, can you just explain it?
Yeah, rental arbitrage is when you'd approach either a landlord, property owner, property manager, rent their property for set rent price, have an addendum sublease agreement signed that you can sublease the property on Airbnb or other short-term rental platforms, or even mid-term rentals, right? And then you obviously furnish the unit yourself, act as a tenant, the middleman for the landlord, and then obviously run your business through that. It can be pretty powerful with Canada. The reason we're expanding down in the south is there's anti-capitalist mindset here, and they only want a few big players. Like, their last name's not Hilton, right? So we're not meant to do business here. It's just the way Canada operates. Cell phone companies to TV to hotels, like, it's never going to change. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. You take the good with the bad, but we see for our business, although we'll never be, to that light of a Hilton, even on small operations that only make sense in the U.S.
Yeah. So just to kind of give an example, so let's say I'm a landlord and I'm renting out my unit. So I have it listed, let's say, on the MLS. And let's just say this is like a Toronto condo. Then you would approach this person and say, I'll sign a lease with you with the right to sublet your unit
Correct.
on Airbnb or whatever platform you choose, and that way you're making that spread between the rent you're paying and the monthly amount you're getting through short-term rentals.
Yes, like after expenses, right? So obviously you're going to have your carrying costs of if you're taking on utilities. If it's a home, you're going to have snow removal. You might have driveway. You always want to go negotiate that stuff on the landlord's plate. You're bringing a lot of value points to a landlord. So if you can get them to take a few things off your plate where you're going to, not nuisance them with things under a certain dollar amount. If you've got a guest in there, you'll just fix it. You'll never hear about it, and you can get them to maybe handle the property maintenance. That's a big pieces that will kind of eat away your profits. But yeah, that's a play. You just take that spread, what you're renting for, what you're profiting off of after cleaning fees and expenses, and take that spread.
What is that spread generally? Like, is there a certain percent you aim for?
We always aim for at least 25. It changes. Canada's changing drastically, as you know. Like, I was in Toronto yesterday reading an article. I think $3,000 for one bedroom. Like, I'm not up to snuff with Toronto rents, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah. So the spreads are getting smaller. You can't Airbnb in Toronto, really. In my opinion, it's not worth your while. I guess you could if you wanted to, but they watch things pretty closely from people I've talked to in the network. So it would just depend where you are. They are getting tighter in Canada, but I guess I think the really big key thing here is to get started, get grandfathered into deals, and you're locked in on rents in Ontario. So if you're providing value to someone, they've signed a contract, they're going to come into you a year later and be like, oh, I want to put your rent up that 2%, is it now? I think they've
2.5%.
2.5.
Yep.
They've held it at 2.5. Is it hold at 2.5? I think it was.
I don't know. I don't think they announced it for next year, but because there were no rent increases allowed last year.
Okay, it was
2022, and I don't think 2021 was allowed either. And this year they made it for 2023. It was 2.5%.
Well, it's good because I've fallen behind in that, but because I've been asked to pay one of our property managers asked to pay the rent increase, but I think he's in a pretty tight spot with the market, so I understand. But if you're bringing like value points, your landlord shouldn't really want to increase your rent. If he's like, I don't know. I look big picture. Most investors I like to think look big picture. Some people are pretty small minded, but if you're bringing all these value points and he doesn't need to manage the property and he has like a stress free, he's not getting calls when he's out with his wife at dinner or whatever his complex is. But yeah, I think it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have to pay those rent increases, or you should be able to negotiate. So over time, the spread should increase. That's where I think a lot of people are looking for the quick money. Mm-hmm. When I started, it never looks pretty. You just got to understand its speed. It's getting it up and it's getting it going. I'm locked in on my third year going in on our Brand Street building. Now we're really seeing like a lot of progress there. So I think that's a key, right? Keep bringing value. Try to lock in your rents in Ontario. Landlords shouldn't want to shift people about. Turnover costs are huge. If you say you're actually going to walk over $50, they should want to retain you if you're actually doing a good job. And I think
so. So just a few questions on that. Are you generally doing this in Ontario? I know you said you're going to be shifting soon, but are you doing it with homes or with condos?
Homes and condos. I'm shifting now. So it's all building reputation. So when I first started, I rented off obviously our partners, and we sold the building to developers. Developers in the meeting of buying it were like, okay, who's the tenant? So I'm like, I'm the tenant. They're like, okay, cool. We're going to board up the windows. You can stay. So I got a pretty healthy rent price with like developers from Dubai, grandfathered in what I was paying my own company, it was, so I started off on the right foot, but it let me see the power. Sorry, I lost track of the question.
Well, I was talking about homes or condos.
Oh, so back into homes. So I started off obviously with apartments, and then we got into homes. But what we did was we got into duplex homes because it's tough to sell to a landlord $1 million asset in Burlington. Like, give me your house. I don't have that much reputation. I'm on Brand Street. I got 3 units, right? So then we have a duplex in Burlington I owned. I started that on Airbnb, but there's huge problems with that, I find, because people running into each other. The separate entrances, pathways, whatnot, but it's just noise, shared ACs. If it's not, properly duplex, it's not legal. But we had to get going. I understood the power of starting, fail, learn the mistakes, get the systems, get the reviews, good or bad. And I'm glad we did. We're now, I just locked up 2 townhomes in Waterdown. I think they're 3,400 rents, brand new assets, 4-bedroom towns. New builds, took the keys off the landlord after the PDIs. So we're now shifting towards single family homes because we have the credibility, and we're going to be very specific what we kind of arbitrage in Canada. There's certain spreads where we're kind of learning them, and they are in the homes, but you need to have obviously reputation to get the homes, and then you'll start to get duplex homes at first, and you're dealing with either a tenant in one area. Yeah, we learn the hard way. So we will continue to take property management on Canada and keep growing that organically. I still see room for arbitrage and our business of owning, either arbitrage or owning maybe a unit. But in Canada, I think stuff would even have to be zoned hotel for me to feel comfortable now. Honestly, it would have to be I that's how far I've come in the year. It's unless it's zoned hotel, I wouldn't even you can't the way where our government's acting. I was listening to a podcast a few weeks ago. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Jacob Perez on Instagram or something. And he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if the government came and took our homes within the next years. Nothing would surprise me. And you have people, credible people, saying, there's been irrational things happen top down. And I think the trust for the big picture here, to me, is pretty.
Well, especially with Airbnb, because that is changing a lot. So I can understand that. And if you're building a whole business around that, then you have to be cautious and be aware of what might be coming. So, but just to go back to that townhouse, or I don't know, you said multiple townhomes in Waterdown, $3,400 a month is the rent?
Correct. Yeah.
And then what are you expecting to get through Airbnb or through your short-term rentals?
I would think 6 to 7 high season. We have 2 towns we managed in Burlington that are closer to downtown, I guess, but they're not half the product, you'd say, just due to like full backyard space. They're brand new, right? Everything's brand new. I think they did about over six
on
each.
But what would be the average over the year?
I'd have to ask like my partner Jay's all that numbers.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I just throw stuff at him, and he kind of takes care of that side. I do have obviously an idea. I would think it would be over 1,500. I would think if we're doing it right. We are working with midterm rental properties now through Sarah Larby, so
Okay.
I'm willing to obviously like shorten my spreads, but alleviate work, right? Build systems out, take direct bookings. And we're kind of learning the HSD side of obviously midterm to long-term rentals different than short-term. So there's benefits there as well. It will like obviously be variable, but I know the high seasons, even in the low season, I think like you're looking over $5,000.
All right. So you're saying it would be about a 1,500 profit per month.
Yeah.
After all your expenses, cleaning fees,
Correct.
everything else.
Correct.
And if you're hiring a company through Sarah Larby to manage these rentals, then what are you doing exactly?
So I wouldn't be. I would just be the kind of the middleman taking the spread, right?
You're literally just
Yeah.
collecting the money.
Yeah.
You're not doing any work yourself.
So yeah, we're really like kind of preparing ourselves for this. So this is what I see coming. If I'm going to keep arbitraging in Canada, I kind of see it moving towards like a midterm rental. So building up our own database, building up our own direct booking. Although there's a law or administration or in Ontario, the TICO. I'm sure you've heard of it. Maybe
I haven't. No, I don't know. Too
I don't
much
know.
about
Like
short-term.
people mentioned it to me. You can't take direct bookings off multi-platform sites directly. You have to have a license, travel agent's license.
Okay.
This is only in Ontario and BC though,
Okay.
right? So it's like typical.
Which
Ontario.
probably isn't that hard to get if you really want.
I think but what I see, which we thought about it, but I'm like, I just see them giving into them, right? I'm like, all this opportunity in the States, these numbers, like I hear we're playing Zelda on hard mode here, and we're going to go invest in a TICO license so we can renew it every year, so we can just play by these laws where they're going to then I got to pay municipal fees and licenses, and it's just like it never ends here. So I feel like I'm like I'm investing more to play hard.
Yeah. But don't forget though that because you're investing in Ontario, you are the tenant. So you have all these benefits and advantages,
which I do see. But this is a big thing. This is a big thing I want to mention. I only believe in win-win value relationships. So if I'm a tenant, for instance, I signed a 2-year lease with the landlord in Barrie, and he called me, and where are we into it? Not even a year, and he's like, "Listen, man, I've never met him. He lives in the States. He's buying property down in the States." He goes, "Listen, I'm becoming a non-tax resident. I know all about that. I'm in the process of trying to do that as well. Canadian non-tax resident." He goes, "I'm selling all my assets. I'd like to part ways with this house before our deal." So I've kind of hashed a deal with him. If I sell it, I know a realtor, I'll get some kickback. I'll take the kickback and I'll walk from the contract. Like, does that work for you? He's like, "You'll walk from the contract? Cool, man." And I said, "Listen, I'll just handle the whole sale and I'll leave it furnished for you. Like have it furnished, like staged, furnished, work with me on rent. If we can't rent it out, well, your showings, etc." He goes like, "Grateful, you'll walk. I can move forward with what I need to do, big picture. And I'll be calling you with any properties I have in the States. I'm purchasing Seattle soon. So I don't know if Seattle will work. I don't know if the property will work. But what it is like your time will expire if you're not providing win-win. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are. It's like I'm a big sports, I compare everything to sports. Played sports my whole life. And one-trick ponies only last so long. And it's like you have to provide value to teammates. You need to be a team player. And since businesses doesn't always, you're not always playing, like your team is your client sometimes in business, right? Although they're not, they are. So if you're not providing win-win for landlords, like you got an expiry date. And that's not like I'm here for the long game. I've always seen it that way. And I know it's going to take a long time to build what we want to build. So why play short-minded? Why play short-sighted? So you have to provide win-win. So I'm never going to use these socialist laws that I absolutely hate that made me start this business against my landlords. Sure. I got a contract. I invested furniture in this place to give you stability. Let's work together. Yeah. Let's find what works for you, what works for me. And that's to me, the only way you're going to last in business.
For sure. Yeah. I wasn't insinuating at all that you should take advantage.
I think that's just one of the benefits I see in this business here, and the property management side of it. Well, we'll always grow on property management because little to no investment, just your time, and with return. But we're still providing win-win.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I know what I know what the landscape looks like here. I've dealt with it. Okay, if we're not maybe doing business ourselves here anymore, we've made it work, and we know how to kind of mitigate your losses or make things work, or max profits or whatever it may be.
Choosing the right mortgage product isn't always about the lowest interest rate. My name is Don Chen, mortgage agent with Pineapple Financial. And here are the 2 things you need to keep in mind. First, exit cost. Does your mortgage product incur a high penalty cost when you need to refinance or make any adjustments to your mortgage, or if you need to sell your property? Secondly, equity accessibility. If you need to access equity that has been built up, does your mortgage product allow you to do that freely and also in the most cost-effective manner? These 2 things will put the most amount of dollars in your pocket and help you get ready for your next real estate project. I would love to connect with you for all your mortgage-related questions. You can reach me at 647-961-3281, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Mortgage Don.
Yeah, I was just more thinking, like, if you were to move your business down to the States and some of these places where it's more kind of landlord-friendly, well, it might be a little more unstable for you because they might just decide they don't want to work with you anymore. And now all of a sudden you have to move all your furniture out and find a new place and that kind of thing. Whereas here, it's not going to be that easy for somebody to get you out, right?
For sure. I'm thinking like very big picture. So I will own in the States eventually. I've just, obviously I've gone through, my wife's left her full-time job too. So we both do this full time, as well as my business partners, Jamie Ho Ravel. So we will be buying. We'll own the assets ourselves. We're just not there yet. We have to build a reputation. I could just get started, but we're looking to become non-tax residents here eventually too. Move everything down to the U.S. Play ball in the U.S. Still live in Canada here and there, but at a discount hopefully, and just live through my business if I can. Live like the lifestyle of it as well that I'll provide. Have multiple units, move around. So that's like kind of the long-term play there with that.
So if somebody's interested in getting involved in what you're doing, because it sounds pretty good, like, once you're set up and you have these systems in place, you start basically collecting the money and you're not really doing anything, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, you got to have your tools up. We're still building like SOPs, systems, all of that. We're
standard operating procedures.
Yeah, we're very
SOPs.
detail oriented. So I would like to describe my business partners, Jamie Ho Ravel, as like, you got really like nice neat compartments for utensils inside of your, like, you got like nice neat compartments for utensils inside of your like drawers, right, in your kitchen. Like they are like that on steroids. Like their organizational skills are incredible. And we really need that, because like we want this to be a passive business and you're only good as what you put into it, and we got a lot of building to do. So we've just recently hired some mentorship in the Airbnb space. Not more or less for the mentorship, but for some key steps that we're missing to expand in the US, that we're just like, I'd rather just pay to take the hit to find these few hiccups we're going to get. We know we don't need our handheld. We're not scared. We know how to work with VAs and stuff. It's just a few key steps we want to avoid the headaches on, and then direct contacts with people for this whole non-tax residency in Canada. So yeah, once we get down there, we believe we'll really start moving in that sense.
Yeah, cool. So just to kind of go back to the other question, if somebody wanted to start a business like this, how do you get started? What are the steps involved? How much capital do you need? That sort of thing.
I would say network first, get to know people, put yourself in the room. Like you can always just start an account, start a website, start offering on properties, speak to a lawyer, but that's like pretty costly startup. I would say start with someone you know. Anyone can furnish a unit. The entry level to Airbnb is like pathetically low. Like but that's why so many people come and go, I believe. And that's why I think like people come into it so quickly, and it doesn't happen as quick as you want. And that's why people go so quickly. Unless you're doing something bigger. So you look at Andrew Hines, like he starts an Airbnb, right? He does a whole campground. Okay, they're going to benefit, while they're, I think they have a lot of investment, but they've got enough units and whatnot to turn some profits, right? Whereas I think people see these ludicrous numbers. Well, if you're doing one unit, and you're investing all this money in it, you have no tools, and you're competing with all these people in the industry who have tools, where you can take all your profit and put it on tools. Like not a lot of people will see that because they don't believe in the system. Like this Airbnb doesn't work. So why would you buy tools? I think that's where like the big thing, you have to invest. You got to keep on investing. Like anything, I think like anything, like you want to own properties. Why would you not have like one of the property management apps to collect rents and stuff, right? Well, that's biting into my Well, you need more units, right? So you just kind of got to look at the bigger scale of things, but just get going. I would say just get going. Like anything, scrape your knees, lose. Like nothing's perfect. Like I never thought I'd be renting off developers on Brant Street. I bought it with my partners. We bought it for the long haul, and they knocked on our door while I was furnishing it. They're like, yeah, we've been trying to buy this. We tried to buy it off. When you guys bought it, we lost we lost the buy. We were too late. So just get going. You don't know what can happen. But personally, if you're going to start in Canada, I would go somewhere where there's already taxes in place. So like Kitchener's taxing you. They already have rules. The chances of them coming down even harder are slim to none. I think there's tertiary markets too, which Kitchener really isn't. But the ones that like have schools like that are so reliant on their students and so reliant on people coming into town, they have nothing else. Like Burlington could shut down Airbnb, so what? Like the business on the QEW alone hold the city up. Like they don't need Airbnb. There's so many of those cities that need Airbnb. Like they need people in their city. They can't shut it down. And I see that. So I think that would be the place to start, and then start with someone you know. There's so many people who are looking for a tenant. You hear the nightmare tenant stories. Present yourself as the solution, and actually be that solution. Though, don't walk the walk. Don't just talk the talk. I think that's a big thing, George.
Yeah. So those are good pointers there. Just to kind of recap, the first thing is to network, ask a lot of questions. If you have the funds available to consult with a lawyer, maybe do that, and then go to a city that already has established short-term rental rules. And number 3 would be present yourself as a solution to people that you know that are looking for tenants and that sort of thing. Yeah. What about corporations, capital required?
You should be able to do everything off a credit card, really. You should be able to start your first last month's rent. So it depends what you're starting in. 1 bedrooms, 1,500 or 2,000, 3,000, I guess, if you're in Toronto.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm not really too close to furnishing costs anymore. I do know the general numbers when they come in, but I would say a 1 bedroom, let's say 8,000, right? Get it furnished for 8,000. You got your rents, with door locks. People could probably get it cheaper. We believe in buying higher quality stuff. We're in it for the long run as well. So we're ready to move stuff around from unit to unit. Which we're kind of, like I mentioned to you now, shifting kind of our model and what we have. But that's all credit card, right? That should be credit, and just build off of that.
Mm-hmm. So let's say we go into that 1 bedroom unit example, and let's just say it's $2,000 a month. Mm-hmm. So you're paying first and last. Yeah. So that's $4,000.
You should be able to negotiate some sort of rent. But my personal opinion is you hear a lot of people talk, you shouldn't have to pay deposits. I don't know personally. I've gotten away with that before, but you're in a different landscape now where people are eating it. The place I rented in Waterdown right now, the guy's eating $6,500 a month. he's open. He's driving $120,000 Macan. He's just dude, I'm eating it here. You're I don't want any headaches. Just the last thing I need now is a phone call. So you're seeing people eat it. So how are you supposed to negotiate with these interest rates? If you're not renewed yet, you're renewing in the next 2 years. People are not going to give you, unless you're taking things in volume. So when you hear that in Airbnb, a lot of the people say, you shouldn't have to pay. You get this 2 months lead time. Yeah, they're also taking things in volume, or they have a lot of credibility already.
So are you talking about some landlords will allow you to just pay 1 month's rent, not first and last?
Correct. Because you're a business, right? You should be able to present that. Hey, look, I'm a business. You're dealing with me for a certain reason. I usually don't pay deposit, is what I would say. But I'll work with you if I have to. That should get you some wiggle room. But you will see more of that once you step in the property manager. We're working with on brands, you people who are they don't even look at the asset. They buy it and they don't even get the keys. Mm-hmm. They're there to develop things, or they're big management companies who own multiple assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So then potentially just first, but usually first and last. So that's $4,000 in that example that we mentioned, where the rent's $2,000 a month. Then about $8,000 for furniture. So you're in for about $12,000. Are there any other fees that you'd be prepared for?
You need some photography, obviously. Mm-hmm. Setup, labor costs as well, but that would go in with that $8,000. Not really. Get it up, get it going. We didn't have professional photographs for our first 3 units. We made it work.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some pretty few key things you'd want. One of them is professional photography, that's for sure.
Yeah, which isn't expensive.
No,
probably $150
$100 now. Yeah, there's so many people doing it that you should be able to get a pretty good standard of.
Okay, so let's just say you're all in for $13,000 to start.
Yeah.
roughly. And you said it's about a 25% profit margin.
Mm-hmm.
So on $2,000 a month, if that's your rent, then you would be making about $500 a month net. Correct? So it would take you over a year to actually over 2 years to recover the original expense.
That's the big reason why we're starting to leave Ontario. It's just keeps getting dragged out, like, and it's just getting worse. Really, there's I think 2 years before we see any really peel back in interest rates. Even if they do start coming back, then it'll put up another basis point. I'm saying 2 years away from that. I don't think it's going to get any better. So the spreads are just getting smaller and smaller. We're actually seeing more handsome spreads because of multiple units, right? I've got guys running around doing maintenance in multiple places and whatnot, and I can negotiate things a little bit better than obviously some people can with our credibility. But that's why I think a lot of people get in it and get out of it very, very quickly. It's not as ludicrous as you think it is unless you're treating it like full time.
So then how do you do that? Especially if you're borrowing off a credit card, how do you make it work if it's going to take 2 years to repay?
You'd have to keep scaling. You'd like want to keep scaling, but you'd have to find better deals, obviously, which aren't available in Ontario, and they're only getting worse, right? Like the wiggle room is not there. So I pay on my triplex on Branch, I pay $4,000 for 3 units. That's, I think, 1 unit on Branch Street, 2-bedroom, probably be $2,450. So
on it, like short term?
No, long term. Right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like that's where I started.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very picky at where I go. But even if like I've had a deal right now where I'm doing that 25% and it still makes sense to me because I'm gonna, when the renewal's up, I'm gonna say to the landlord, hey, listen, I've got all these other properties doing well. I can walk from this, or I can have, you can take my rent back a little bit, and you don't have to have turnover. Keep handling things the way they are. It needs to work for me, or I'll just move the furniture. That's kind of the big thing, but we're looking at kind of scaling the model and taking obviously like debt against it, and then moving it down to the States, right, where the numbers are more ludicrous and we'll own.
Yeah. And the margins are probably higher.
Yeah, and
right?
we're looking for the equity pay down. The big play is the equity pay down. I don't think arbitrage is very, very powerful. I think in the U.S. where you can do things multiple units in a city, and that's what we're seeing here. So we're grateful and lucky enough that have a portfolio that's doing very well up here, but we see the expiring timeline. And like my most handsome 3 units are on Branch Street, and they're getting torn down within the next 2 years. I think they got approved last week on the building. So we're well aware of that. And then obviously impending licensing. So then if you have to operate, you have to pay licensing fees here, even if you're in a friendly environment.
And that's going to eat into your margins.
It's all eating into your margin. And then you're playing by someone else's fiddle essentially, which I don't like to do. Yeah. So that $2,000 rent, I think like obviously we would run those numbers before, and we'd be doing something close to $1,500. But it would all depend. And like these numbers aren't nailed down; those are my partners. But we always look into things before, and that's where we're seeing like you have to have multiple units. You have to scale things on multiple. Yeah,
and it sounds like there's going to be a little bit of a period initially where you're not making a lot because you're kind of repaying the borrowed money. But then after a couple years, that's when you start seeing the money.
We're about 2.5 years into it. I would say about the 1 3/4 thresh mark, we didn't start making money till we did make money, but all the profits were taken and put back somewhere else.
Sure.
And then those properties weren't making as much. But now the wheels are turning, and also you learn how to play the game a little bit better, right? So there's different ways to make money in Airbnb. If you're not making money on repairs, you're not doing it right. You should be hoping for a repair. So I think people get into this the wrong way. Like it's like if you, that's why you need to do this full time and have a system. We have a full-time employee. He runs around, he fixes everything. He just cleans for us. He does everything. He has to fill in. But if we got a repair, we're making money off that repair. Like it's like I'm not sending my guys. We're not hiring labor. We have a business. All our time's cost. Things need to get marked up. We can't run anything through a company in Ontario without marking it up. It's the name of the game here. So that's just part of it, right? So if we've got a repair, we're all insured through Airbnb. That's why our landlords trust us. We have a system on how to retrieve that money, and we have the tools, i.e. cleaning CRMs, to where our cleaners are so dialed in. Like me and my wife stepped back into cleaning this year for 5 months with 2 kids screaming at us while we're doing it because like they just couldn't meet our standards. So we had to implement a CRM. Only hire South Americans. I'm like, I wish, George, I wish I was being like sarcastic with saying that. I could truly say I would not hire any cleaner that's not South American. From scratch. They're just, it's a different mindset, George. It's like, they're like level of cleanliness, their attention to detail, it's just bred into them. It's incredible. They're a pleasure to work with. They have a growth mindset, I find, even with what they're making. So we step back into cleaning for the cleaning CRM to make sure we have these tools to where things are dialed down so tight that if someone breaks anything, we're going to make money off that. We have to, and we are keeping our guy busy. We're not doing it on purpose, but people damage stuff all the time. And if you have an Airbnb over 3 years and you're not catching the little things, like your properties, it does catch up. It's just as bad as a long-term tenant. You need to have everything in place to, make the returns, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like some people, I just think hear about it. Less wear and tear. Yeah. If you have the tools in place.
Well, speaking of wear and tear, let's just say you are doing the arbitrage thing and one of your short-term tenants tells you that there's a plumbing leak. All of a sudden, there's a leak and from the bathroom above, and the ceiling's all damaged. Is that something you would go and fix, or you'd have the landlord fix
No,
that?
the landlord would fix that, but we negotiate in our addendum agreement that there's a response time, there's a cost, anything under a certain cost, we bill you back for it immediately. We need, obviously, 24-hour service. We have a 24-hour phone line. We bring all these professional angles to you. We're not making up plumbing issues to ding you to like, we're here to make you win. I think that's where the more credibility you get, trying to sell that to someone when you have no Airbnb units and you don't even have a profile and like, oh yeah, but by the way, if we get anything under $1,000, like I got to just send the guys in, right? Like who are you? Why would you sign that with a tenant?
Yeah.
I think with credibility, it makes sense, right? Like clearly you're not trying to hose people. It's just with time. So there's terms we have to protect ourselves and that you need to scrape your knees to learn. You need to implement those terms.
Sure. Yeah. There's always that process.
Yes. People sell buildings. People list buildings without telling you. There's all sorts of things. You just need to be aware of it.
Yeah. There's an interesting way that I've heard people have been using kind of this arbitrage thing or short-term rental thing. So in apartment buildings, sometimes people will have a little space that's not big enough to be a legal unit, but they might furnish it and put a kitchen in and a bathroom in. And then what I've heard some people do is they will write a contract, like a lease contract with a corporation that they have. The same people that own that building will write a contract with another corp they have, and then they'll Airbnb it through that second corp.
Yeah, it's a gray area in Ontario,
Yeah.
right? So I think like it's kind of like I compare like the gray area of Airbnb to like kind of like the I'm sure you've all heard about the Brampton mortgages, right? We all know about them. Like no, come on, you've never heard of Brampton?
I live in Brampton.
The Brampton Papers? No, come on, like
no.
Like Brampton people push through fake mortgages, like the fake mortgage docs thing.
Yeah,
it's just like here's commonplace in Brampton. So we all heard of the Brampton Papers, right? So I think it's just like there's. Canada gives
I didn't
off.
know there was a name for it.
Canada, yeah, buddy. There's like a whole, Brampton Papers or Brampton Mortgages or whatnot. But I think Canada like gives off this image that we're this like clean, like there's no shady business, like everything's so covered. I think we're probably one of the most shady countries in the world, and everyone just kind of turns a cheek to it and does their own shady thing. And like I not shady, but like everyone kind of operates in gray areas. Like I would say like the Donald Trumps, right? Like they make money in gray areas where it's legal and allowed, but no one really talks about it. But Canada acts like there's just like this image it gives
there's
off.
a difference between mortgage fraud and
No. I don't say. But the whole like I know everyone knows about it. Like it's just like this commonplace like. People come here and they people immigrate to Canada. They use all the gray area rules to their advantage, and none of it gets put back into our system, right? Like I find that's
sometimes
that's
not always the case.
I don't think that's always the case. Like my family are immigrants, right? So like, and I'd say all my friends' families are immigrants. But I just feel like there's a lot of people in Canada operate in gray areas, and it gives off this like image. And I got exposed the last few years. I'm just like. This country's so wildly corrupt, but like it's like in your face, but no one really cares. And yeah, I hear half of Brampton's funded off those mortgages. Actually,
I don't know. It's hard to like really know the details of that. I know there are shady people out there. Obviously, like I'm a realtor, so in the past I have come across some mortgage brokers that are shady, but I don't think the majority of them are, at least not the majority that I've dealt with.
Okay.
But who knows what the actual
I don't know.
numbers are.
I operate in Hamilton, right? So it's a mob run city. So like
Yeah.
it's just like I've always seen things the back, like, the back streets way, and it's just funny when you see how Canada operates.
Yeah.
As you get older, your eyes open up to it more, I guess.
Sure. There was just one more thing I want to ask you about. So this whole Sarah Larbi midterm suites.
Yeah,
thing,
it's Aisha Govani and Sarah Larbi.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about that? I've never asked her. I know Sarah Larbi. I've never asked her about that. But if I wanted to work with her, what would that be like?
I think you sign up for a monthly fee or whatnot. We're working with them kind of directly right now. I've got kind of an inside relationship with them. We're kind of doing like a trial run, like to see how it works. So I've got the one unit in Waterdown. We took the one across the street. We're going to give her the one for a couple months at a discounted rate. Let's see how it works. We're putting some additional hurdles in place for ourselves to protect ourselves, like the innkeepers acts and stuff like that within the units to ensure that this is a short-term rental. Once you go to month-to-month rentals, right? It scares me a bit in Ontario. In the arbitrage space, but you work with credible people like Sarah and Midterm. So they kind of handle everything. They take all the liability, and they get the people in there. You pay a monthly fee, you jump on their program, then you're, I think, pushed to the front of the list, and obviously the first one to get the phone call. And they have very, very professional tenants. I think people coming into our place are Desjardins employees renovating.
So they pick the tenants.
Yeah, and they've vetted them. They've got all their information. I think she said, like, for instance, if they had someone from out of country, they would have their departure ticket or departure date emailed to them to verify, hey, you know what? He's leaving on the 30th. He works for this company. So they do all the due diligence for you. They place them in there. The spread might not be as friendly as Airbnb, but it's a way, it's a way to...
But they'll manage the cleaners and all that?
We would manage the cleaners.
Okay.
We just charge a cleaning fee.
So they're basically filling the unit for you.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
So
you pay
they're
them a fee. You pay
Got
them
it.
a fee.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like tenant placement, basically.
Correct. So I think there's a huge market for that, and I think that's going to expand very large, especially with our immigration. I heard another number about more Ukrainians coming over. He just passed, I think, like a couple 100,000. We got $1 million a year, all good, I think. But the housing crisis, I think this is just going to play right into the hands. And I don't think there's much building going on right now with these interest rates, unless it's Mattamy or something, right?
Well, a lot of the builders, they've owned land for a while.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and also, a lot of builders right now are looking for land because they know that some people are in a position where they have to sell, and it takes a couple years to actually develop the land and change the zoning or whatever. So people are kind of like in that process now. I think there are a lot of holds on projects. Yep. But I don't. We'll see where things end up going with that.
It's going to be an awesome time, man. I think there's not a better time really to be in it. Reminds me when I got in 2009. People are kind of shuffling about, looking at the bad, but what an incredible time. There's going to be so many opportunities, and things are kind of, it's natural for this to happen. Look at the trends. I'd say, stick to the fundamentals, and it's always a wild ride, but I see lots of opportunity coming, and kind of every aspect in real estate, whether you're a realtor, you're doing burrs, you're doing flips, everything has its time. There's dips and valleys and peaks and valleys or whatnot. And I think it's what's ahead is incredible. And the more knowledge you have, bigger your network, the more tools you have, the more strength you'll have.
Yeah, for sure. Just to finish things off, how do people reach you and what services are you offering?
You can,
if any.
Yeah, you can reach us at personally, Cameron, Cameron at Midlothian Suites. You can put all this in the show notes. Yep. We've got a 24-hour call line that'll be in the show notes. You can reach us out to there anytime. Give us your address, specs of your property. We offer rental arbitrage, and we also offer property management. So obviously managing your Airbnb, full turnkey management. Reach out. You can visit our website as well at midlothiansuites.com.
Cool. Yeah. Cam, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Well Off Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then I'd really appreciate if you left us a review on iTunes and let us know your thoughts. In order for us to get a larger audience, it's really important to have reviews, so your support is extremely appreciated. And also, don't forget to share the podcast with your friends and family. Until next time, I'm George Almasri. Have a great day.